Hello and welcome to another episode of Before the Shot Clock with Ken. All right, so we're just going to jump right into this. Merry Christmas to everybody. As you can see, I do have my Christmas tree in the background here. Not a big one, but we're festive nonetheless. Not as festive as James Cairns, but we're festive. Okay, so we're going to start off today with Oshawa versus Vancouver. So shout out to a friend of the program, Jackson Subak. He scored a goal. Jackson doesn't score very often. He's more of a defensive enforcer type player, but he did really well. That was a very fast game. Lots of end-to-end transition. Great goalies on both ends in Jameson and Del Bianco. Low scoring, however, would still have been a great game to go to just because of the speed of the game. Oshawa's lack of scoring drought continues, which is unfortunate because I know that they really need a game where they pop off, and it will happen eventually, but obviously not right at the moment. Vancouver continues to win. It's no surprise there. They have been incredible. Probably the top team in the West at the moment. So good on you there, Vancouver. We'll see how the rest of the season turns out for you guys. All right, so Philly versus Rochester. There's a goalie fight, which you don't see very often. Rylan Hartley versus Nick DeMood. I think Rylan got the best of him, but Rylan's not just a goalie who fights. He's a fantastic goalie. As I talked about last week, he was very, very impressive. This week he's been fantastic too, this past weekend. So he is showing he is for real, but he can also throw hands. I think this is like his second or third fight since joining the NHL. So props to you, Rylan Hartley. If you could throw him, chuck him, bro. All right, so Rochester's offense is the best in the league, and it's hard to compare to anyone else with the offensive firepower that they have. There's no doubt. Yeah, you could argue Toronto. Yeah, you could argue Vancouver. But Rochester just keeps showing it. They've got 7 options of guys who can put the ball in the back of the net. You don't get that very often. Have a day, Jake Pisino. He got a hat trick. It's his first hat trick of his career. 2 of the 3 goals were in transitions. That was pretty spectacular from a guy coming off the down the floor there, just to be able to pop 3 quick ones. In that Rochester-Philly game, I really realized how much I love watching Fennell's game, Eric Fennell. So good. I love watching him off ball, opposed to with the ball. Yeah, he makes some stuff happen when he's got the ball on his stick, but he's very good at moving around off ball and finding space. If you're ever watching a Philly game, I would recommend keeping an eye on that because the way that he moves is very, very subtle, but efficient. We spoke about it last week with all these fights breaking out at the end of games. Happened in the Vancouver game, happened in the Rochester game. This is becoming the attitude era of lacrosse. Just with little tussles and stupid plays at the ends of games. It is becoming the attitude era. This keeps up for a whole year. The NL is going to end up cracking down on it, but expect that the next year is going to be, or even the end of the season, it's piss and vinegar. Everybody's going to be pissed. There's going to be a lot of tension no matter who plays who. I'm super excited to see how this all turns out, but I think this is the attitude era because you got so many guys who just don't like being pushed around and like poking the bear. Philly hung in there as much as they could, but they were outmatched by Rochester's squad, who ultimately won the game. So that was the Rochester Nighthawks versus the Philadelphia Wings game. So then moving on to the Rush versus the Swarm. You know what? Rush usually have a really good crowd, but they kind of disappointed me this week. Not a great crowd. I suspect that there should be more fans at games, especially being that it was a Saturday game. However, every fan that was in that attendance had a green jersey on. So at least they're passionate, at least they're showing their colors, at least they're loud. but we need to step that up. Saskatchewan, get some more people in that crowd. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you got to get more eyes on the game because you can't have a crowd like that in the NLL. Not in a market like Saskatchewan where you're expected to fill up an arena. Great games by the goalies and defenses for Georgia in Dobson, and for Saskatchewan, Frank the Tank Chiliano. It was a 7-4 game for the Rush. I didn't really have much to talk about in that game. I don't know, Saskatchewan just doesn't seem to catch my eye too much when I watch games. I wish that I could be more into their games, but they just don't have that it factor to me. Yeah. So the next game that we're going to talk about is Ottawa versus Vegas. So this was the last game of the week. So Vegas started super strong. They were, I want to say it was 9-0, and maybe 9-1. And Ottawa came back, tied it up at 9-9 in the fourth quarter. Vegas did score one to make it 10-9. Vegas did ultimately win the game. Shout out Landon Kells, huge game after struggling the week before. He bounced back, made a game out of it. He needed a good one after last week. Vegas did hold on, obviously, and nice to see Tyler Carlson back in the game for Ottawa, even if it was a minimal time. But man, get that man a paint job. You can't be rocking the white bucket. I was a white bucket helmet guy myself, and I always wanted a paint job. You can't be a white bucket goalie in the NLL, man. You can't do it. But I want to shout out Ottawa as well. You know, I keep saying that they're not a 4-quarter team. They're just missing that first quarter, and they started off slow again, and that's disappointing. But at least they are showing the resilience to get themselves back in games. It's going to be tiring by the end of the season if they keep doing that. So Dan McRae needs to figure out a way to fire up the boys before the game and make a hard start out of it so that you can get 4 quarters out of the Ottawa Black Bears. All right, so that is the past week. What's coming up for the next week? Week 5's incoming. So we have Halifax versus Saskatchewan. I have Halifax to win. Halifax is a powerhouse. Saskatchewan, they're whatever right now. Philly versus Ottawa. I think it's going to be close, but I think Ottawa wins. I think this is going to be their first 4-quarter game. Sure hope so. Toronto versus Vegas. I think it's going to be close, and I don't even want to predict it because it could go either way. So I'm just not even going to predict it. Georgia versus Colorado. Colorado versus Georgia. I think I'm going to go Georgia to win in a low-scoring game. And the reason being is both teams don't necessarily have the most scoring. And I think Georgia's defense is better than Colorado's defense. So I think a low-scoring game would be expected, and Dobson's been playing great, so you can't really hate on that right now. Buffalo versus Calgary. I got Buffalo winning. I think the East is much stronger than the West this year. That's what I'm kind of realizing. I am more of a Western fan, so it's kind of a tough thing for me to say without coming across like I have a bias because I'm more of an Eastern fan. However, I do think the East, bias aside, is the stronger division, maybe other than Vancouver, and everyone's going to think I'm crazy all year, Vegas. Okay. So, this is a quick episode. Wow. We're going to talk about a lacrosse story of mine. People like to ask about how my experience playing for Six Nations was. I want to tell everybody that was the best experience I've ever had in lacrosse. As you can see, I'm a white guy, and I grew up in Burlington. So I was kind of not aware of the reality of the reserve, the Six Nations Reserve, and what people were like, and all I ever saw was the news. But I loved the game of lacrosse, and I loved the culture of the game of lacrosse, and I wanted to get to know the culture of the game better, and I wanted to experience something new. So we went out to the reserve, and I ended up playing for Six Nations. I had only ever played on concrete my whole life prior. Well, if you've ever been to the Six Nations Reserve or know of the Six Nations Reserve, they play lacrosse on a rink floor called the Iroquois Lacrosse Arena. That is turf. I had only ever played on concrete, so I didn't understand the bounces as a goalie, right? I didn't understand how to stop the ball and read the bounce off of the floor. So anything that bounced, I was not stopping. My first game, I let in 23 goals. 23 goals. So bad. I'm still disappointed at myself on that one. There was an old man sitting right behind my net who may have or may not have had too many drinks, and he was yelling through the glass at me, trying to teach me how to play goalie because he thought I was clueless. However, I just didn't know how to read the bounces, and there was probably some nerves, you know? It was a new experience for me. I didn't know these guys. I wasn't sure how they were going to take me as a outsider coming to play for a Six Nations team. But I think all in all, that was a game that needed to happen because those guys, they didn't close me out and hate on me. I mean, maybe they were wary on like, why do we have this terrible goalie? But there was nothing cultural or racial that made them not want me as their goalie. My next game, I got a shutout. Rest of the season, I played pretty damn good. The boys loved me by the end of the season. I love the boys. It was a great experience. That was the best year of lacrosse I've ever played. Those guys are still my brothers. Shout out Broderick Rennie. Shout out Phil Henry. Shout out Kyle. All those boys. Stephen Wilson, Darius Doolittle. Like those were my boys. And I'm glad that I got that experience, and I'm glad that they didn't hate me after that. But the amount that I learned on that reserve, the amount of love that I got from not just the guys on the team, but their parents, the community. I was in the Turtle Island News, which is like the local media channel at the time. I don't know if it still is, but the amount of love I got was very heartwarming. So shout out Six Nations, shout out Six Nations Warriors. Would never trade that experience for anything in this world. But yeah, that's the experience. That's the story about me sucking in net and then bouncing back, showing resilience with my boys. All right, so that's this week. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I think we might have one more episode next week. If not, it'll be in the new year. All the shows are going to kind of take a week off for the most part, just to bounce back and, you know, enjoy the holidays with their families. But yes, You Can Sports will bounce back strong. You know, we're the only ways up from here. So thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions, you have any comments, there's anything you want me to talk about, or any like stories you particularly want to hear about, please let me know. Send me DMs, send me comments. Please like and share everything. It means a lot to me, just to get that love and know that we are doing a good thing here, and that people are enjoying what we're doing, and that we're building a community. I don't want it just to be me talking. I want it to be a community. So thank you so much, and you have a great day. Take care, guys. Bye.